What's up, everyone, and welcome back to the Brewers franchise in MLB The Show 17. And today, we're going to be talking about prospects. The draft has come and gone, and we have a farm report to get to in this episode as well. We'll get into the Brewers' top 10 prospects and their performance this season later on in this episode, but first, we have to discuss the new prospects that will be entering the Brewers pipeline next season. The Brewers had the 10th overall pick in the 2017 MLB draft, and they took a blue chipper with that pick. First baseman Phil Altman. He is capable of playing every infield position except for shortstop, so there is some flexibility there, although first base is a long-term hole that we don't really have any prospects at. Very good contact, good plate vision and discipline. You can't see it here, but it's very high. Needs to work on fielding and not the fastest, but he's a very developed hitter, and you'll spend a couple years in the minors trying to refine some other skills, but he's almost an MLB-ready hitter as is coming out of the draft at number 10. And you could even argue that the Brewers got a better prospect in the second round in terms of Tomas Gonzalez, listed as a second baseman, but like Altman can play every infield position, this time including shortstop. A right-handed hitter, he's already a 7-1 overall and has great contact ratings, as well as pretty decent plate vision, and he is a really fast player as well. With a 75 speed, I would expect him to develop into a potential 15 to 20 stolen base threat in the prime of his career, and he doesn't project to be an amazing fielder as of now, but you can work with those ratings at only 19 years old. And after using their first two picks on position players, the Brewers went hard on pitching, starting with the 22-year-old Dale Wood, just came out of college. Great stamina and velocity, needs to work on control. His break could use some work too, but he's already really good at preventing hits and home runs, just needs to refine his strikeout and walk game just a little bit, but that will come with the improvement of control. 64 overall already. You could see this guy in the majors in just a couple seasons. And when you're a team with pitching woes, much like the Brewers, you got to be ecstatic when a guy like this falls to the third round. In the fourth round, Milwaukee took Steve Weber, an 18-year-old right-hander, only a 55 overall, but has two standout traits already with 51 Ks per nine and 53 home runs per nine. Needs to work on his other stuff, but he has 80 stamina and 79 velocity already, and he has 89 breaks, so I imagine he has some amazing breaking pitches. He has 56 control, which should improve over time, but really just needs to work on his fundamentals, not allowing hits, not walking people. Already good at preventing home runs and getting strikeouts, so we'll see how this guy performs in the minors. A 55 overall, going to be a multi-year project, but this guy has ridiculous upside, and I could see him even progressing to be a mid-90s pitcher with that set of ratings. And the Brewers dipped into the starting pitching pool once again in the 5th round, taking Ryan Rucker, another right-hander, getting 3 right-handed pitchers out of this draft. Rucker's not going to be a guy who racks up strikeout totals, but he limits his contact and keeps the ball in the park. Throws pretty hard as well, needs to work on his control, but already with 68 velocity at only 19 years old. Definitely a great selection for the 5th round of the draft. And in the 6th round, the Brewers took yet another pitcher, this time a guy who profiles a little bit more as a reliever. Great velocity, great break, not so great control, but he's pretty balanced overall in terms of his fundamentals. 46 hits per nine, 42 Ks per nine, 30 walks per nine, which isn't terrible for a reliever when that, in comparison to his other stats, his walks per nine isn't a whole lot lower. 43 home runs per nine. Looks like he could be a decent reliever if he pans out, although he's only 46 overall, so they're definitely taking a risk. But it is the 6th round of the draft, and guys with this kind of upside usually are not on the board. And in the 7th round, the Brewers made their final pick, selecting outfielder Eric Molina, and the first thing that pops out is this dude's speed. 91 speed already. Unfortunately, he doesn't really have anything else going for him at this point. Very, very liable in the field. Not a great fielder at all, and he does not have any really developed hitting skills. He's a balanced hitter, but not a strong one. Not great contact in the low 40s and not great power, it's only in the high 30s. So we'll see if this guy can develop into anything. But for a 7th round pick, 79 potential is pretty strong. And he's only 21 years old. He definitely has time to fulfill that potential, maybe become a 4th outfielder or even just a pinch runner in the MLB. Now that we've talked about the Brewers' new prospects, let's talk about the ones that were already there. We're going to talk about the top 10 Brewers prospects and how they are performing throughout this season. And of course, you have to start any Brewers prospect discussion with Lewis Brinson, who has worked his way up to number 2 on the MLB's overall prospect list, sitting at a 76 overall with 95 potential. Currently, his AAA stats are 336, 400, 685, 1085, slash line, 10 home runs, and 26 RBI, and he's progressing very nicely. He's improving his hitting against right-handers. He was already an animal against left-handers. He's looking on his plate vision and plate discipline, which is coming along pretty nicely, and he's improving in the field. I would be very surprised if Lewis Brinson is not in the majors either this season or next. It's a little bit different of a story for number 8 overall prospect Josh Hader, who was the Brewers' second best prospect, 73 overall, 90 potential. He has had a rough go of things in AAA this season. In 54 innings pitched, he has a 4.17 ERA, a 4.17 FIP, a 148 whip, 7.67 Ks per 9, 4.83 walks per 9, and 0.83 home runs per 9. And while there's no doubt that Hader has struggled this season, the Brewers have hope that he can turn it around, and they're not going to be rushing him by any means, as he's only 22 years old, and the Brewers are not planning to contend anytime soon. They can take as much time as they want with Josh Hader, maybe give him some more time at AA, or just give him a shot to work out his troubles at AAA. We'll see how the season unfolds for Josh Hader, but so far it hasn't been the greatest or most promising. Number 3 on this list is an inclusion that might surprise some people, as they do not think that this man is anywhere close to the majors at the age of 22. Cory Ray, the number 42 prospect in all of baseball, sitting with a 55 overall. That's not the impressive part. The impressive part is his 94 potential. He's currently batting .219, .270, .311, .582 in AA with 2 home runs and 21 RBI. However, he does have 12 stolen bases and is one of the faster prospects in the Brewers system. Ray is actually very similar to current Brewers outfielder Keon Broxton in that he's very good in the field and has very good speed as well, but doesn't really have the best hitting ratings as of this point. He does have quite a bit of time to develop, as he is only 22. However, he is a little older than many prospects at this stage of their career, so you have to wonder if he's going to fill out his massive potential. But the Brewers have hope, and like I said earlier with Josh Hader, they're not in a situation where they have to rush him. They can give him as much time to work out his troubles as he needs. And one of the biggest elephants in the room at the start of this season was Orlando Arcia. Not only because I kept calling him Oswaldo in the team introduction, but because he wasn't included in the list of the top 50 prospects in baseball. And the reason that he wasn't included on that list is because he already burned his rookie eligibility, as last season he was called up by the Brewers and exceeded the 130 at-bat minimum to still be considered a rookie. And with that, he also lost his prospect eligibility. However, for the sake of this list, I'm going to be considering him a Brewers prospect, and I'm going to say that he is the 4th best Brewers prospect. Doesn't quite have the pedigree of Lewis Brinson or Josh Hader or even Cory Ray in the MLB's eyes, but Orlando Arcia has 99 potential. There is no limit to the player that he could become. Yes, he's not very developed offensively, doesn't make contact, doesn't hit for power, doesn't have great plate discipline, but he's an excellent fielder already at the age of 22, and he's a great base runner with great speed at 82, and he is going to be a great player in major leagues even if he doesn't hit at all. That being said, Arcia has had a dreadful year in AAA, as he is only batting .195, .283, .305, and .588 this season, with 3 home runs and 17 RBI. Now, he is hitting worse than he did for Milwaukee's major league team last year, which is a little bit of a concern. But hopefully he can snap out of this funk. It's only been 164 at-bats this season, and maybe turn around and get into the 700s or even high 600s. Anything would be a step forward from this. And while there's no doubt that Orlando Arcia will be a good MLB player one day, it is just a question of how long it is going to take him, and it looks like it's going to be an even longer road from here. Moving on down the list now, we have another AA prospect, and this time it is a pitcher, and it is Luis Ortiz, who has pitched 48 2/3 innings to a 148 ERA, 247 FIP, 101 whip, 7.95 Ks per 9, 2.03 walks per 9, and .37 home runs per 9. And this is a guy who is really getting close to being promoted to AAA. Doesn't quite have the attributes yet. His hits and Ks per 9 are still in the 40s. However, he's good at limiting walks and home runs, and he already throws very hard at only 20 years old, and he has pretty decent stamina as well. Luis Ortiz may be an under-the-radar guy, but definitely somebody to watch out for going forward. That's going to wrap up the top 5. Just outside of the top 5 at number 6 is a man that's new to the Brewers organization, as he was just signed at the beginning of this season, and that is Japanese import Shohei Otani, who has had an excellent season at AAA so far and has arguably been the team's best pitcher at the AAA level. He's pitched 64 innings to a 3.09 ERA, a 3.09 FIP, a 128 whip, 8.02 Ks per 9, 2.53 walks per 9, and .7 home runs per 9. Definitely been a very pleasant surprise. Needs to work on his home runs and walks per 9, but he's already got pretty decent control, pretty good velocity, and pretty good stamina, and he's a guy with the proper progression who could potentially be in the majors next season. We'll see how that works out. At number 7, we have shortstop Isan Diaz, 20-year-old shortstop out of Puerto Rico. It says he is at the AA level, but that is because he was recently promoted, as Ricardo De La Torre was demoted due to poor performance. And Diaz is an interesting prospect, as he doesn't really stand out in any areas, but really has the potential to be a 5-tool player. Pretty decent contact, pretty decent power, pretty decent fielding, pretty decent arm, and pretty decent speed. He really could develop into an all-around threat but the question is whether he ever really will. He only has B potential, and I believe it's around an 85 potential, but he is only 20 years old, and he's already at the AA level after this recent promotion, so we'll see what the future holds for Isan Diaz, and even if he ends up being like a lower level guy, this is a pretty decent guy to have in your system at the very least. Now let's talk about 23-year-old Japanese second baseman Tetsuto Yamama, who's had a very strange season at AAA, as his on-base is almost as high as his slugging. 270, 357, 358, 715 slash line. Hasn't hit a single home run in 2 months. 20 RBI and 7 stolen bases, and I didn't think this guy was really a speed threat, but he could maybe be a 15 to 20 stolen base guy. Has a 72 speed, pretty decent fielder, good reaction time. Doesn't have the greatest hitting skills yet, but he's not a guy that we expect to be in the majors anytime soon anyway. Gonna give him some time to maybe, develop into a contact hitter or a power hitter, try and make some more contact with the ball, see if he can develop his skills a little bit more. No rush for Tetsuto Yamama, but has been pretty decent so far, and I'm very happy with his performance. At number 9 is the last of the trio of Japanese prospects that the Brewers acquired before the season in starting pitcher Shintaro Fujinami. Fujinami has had a very, very strange season if you look at his stats. 53 and a third innings pitched, 3.88 ERA, but only a 2.83 FIP, a 1.35 WHIP, 9.62 Ks per 9, 3.04 walks per 9, and 0.51 home runs per 9. So very, very favorable in the 3 true outcomes. And I really think he's just getting unlucky, honestly. If you look at his FIP and you look at his walk rate, it's really good, but he has a 3.88 ERA. Must just really be getting lots of bad luck on balls in play. But still, pretty decent prospect. Expect him to be in the majors along with Shohei Otani very soon. The only reason he's ranked so low on this list is because his potential is going to limit him at only 81. And the final prospect on our list is another A-baller, center fielder Trent Clark, as the Brewers have a pretty deep crop of outfield prospects with Cory Ray, Brinson, and Trent Clark. Trent Clark, only 20 years old, pretty decent hitter against lefties already, has to work on his plate vision, has pretty decent speed already, and looks like he's going to be pretty solid in the field. Not great right now, but is probably going to improve as he progresses up through the minors. Not really a lot to say about him right now, but he could potentially be a pretty good player in the future. And that pretty much covers it in terms of the Brewers farm system. You saw the prospects that are already there, how they fare, what their outlook is going to be for the future, as well as the prospects that will be joining the organization next year. And combining this year's draft with the preseason international free agent signings, of which Ricardo De La Torre didn't even make the top 10 prospects list. He was on the fringe but didn't quite make the cut. It's pretty clear to me that the Brewers are making an attempt to strengthen their farm system. With the trade of Jonathan Lucroy bringing in Lewis Brinson last year, and the moves that have been made this season, it's clear that the Brewers are looking toward the future and trying to acquire as many high upside guys as possible. And though a couple of guys have hit snags like Josh Hader and Orlando Arcia, it's not to say that their futures aren't really bright as well. And some young talent is already coming out of this system, which has been weak for the last 2 years. Keon Broxton, 26 years old, is finally making a name for himself in the MLB. And Domingo Santana has been a regular now for a couple of seasons, and he's been a very solid player. Maybe not amazing, but he's been better than a lot of players in the league. Milwaukee's making a lot of good moves to build toward the future, which is a good idea considering that they are one of the worst teams in baseball this season. But we'll save that for another time. That's going to do it for me. Thank you guys for watching. Leave a like if you enjoyed. Stay tuned for more Brewers franchise and MLB The Show 17.